Welcome to Finding Home Healing. I'm your host, Sadie. I believe you were born with a light that guides you to your higher self and most passionate life. But for many of us, it's been extinguished or lost. My mission is to help you find your way back home to that light so that you can love deeper, live in your power, and truly thrive. For those lost or lonely souls, welcome home. Welcome to this episode of Finding Home Healing. I suggest that you tune into this one today if you are someone who finds yourself feeling really affected by other people's moods and energy. Like, for instance, if you are around other people and you are picking up on some of their dark or negative feelings, moods, or energy, and then all of a sudden you feel like there's some type of dark cloud over you and you feel really crunchy and just not well and you don't know why. Or if, let's say, your spouse or your partner or roommate come home, they've had a really bad day, they're in a bad mood, and then all of a sudden you find yourself also in a bad mood and feeling crunchy and just not good and cranky, and your total vibe has been derailed. Or if your mom calls you and she's stressed or sad, and you find yourself then feeling stressed or sad, or any other emotions that she might have. These are all just different examples of this phenomenon that we're going to talk about today. And the topics we're going to cover today are really reasons for why this may be happening for you, and also how to protect yourself so that you don't feel affected by other people's moods to this degree, and you can feel calm and peaceful and more in control of your own mood, your own energy, and your own state. So let's dive in. Almost every client that I work with, I talk about this with. Not only because it's, in my opinion, really, really important for all people, and even more specifically for those of us that are highly sensitive or empathic, but because this is a phenomenon that shows up that I find that most people don't know about, and they don't have the tools to help protect them. They don't have the tools to help take care of themselves. And I'll get into what this phenomenon is in a minute, but I find that people are just passing this phenomenon to each other. It's like a virus or a cold or the flu, and every person that has it is like infecting the next person, if you will. And it's just this hot potato that bounces around to different people who have the interaction with it. And my goal really today is to help you understand what's really going on and how to counteract it. This phenomenon is something that I would say usually highly sensitive people and empathic people experience more than the non-highly sensitive person. That doesn't mean that non-highly sensitive people can't experience it. It's just that for HSPs, it's a little bit more, as you would say, dramatic or obvious. So whether you know that you're an HSP or not is okay. You don't need to know that. If you'd like to know that, I have another podcast about highly sensitive people. Please go check that out. You'll find out a lot of fun information. But if whether you know it or not is fine. If you know that you're empathic, like you feel other people's moods, you can take on other people's energy, then this is going to be so supportive for you. And it may or may not be information that you've ever been exposed to before. So buckle up for it. I also want to caveat with the fact that I'm going to do my best to be very respectful of everybody's belief system. This topic gets a little bit dabbled into like the spiritual world and things that are unseen that might not exist in the physical 3D reality world that you can see with your physical eyeballs. So if any of you out there are skeptics or atheists or have like a really dogmatic belief system, just want to let you know that this may or may not be the podcast for you, which is totally okay. I invite you to just have an open mind and listen and feel if things that I say resonate with you, if they make sense to you, whether it's logically or emotionally or spiritually, whatever it may be, energetically. If you don't agree with it, that's okay. I'm not saying that this is the way of the world and that you have to believe this in order for you to live your life. This is just anecdotal real life experience that I've had and that I've used with every client that I work with, almost every client. I just want to make sure I set the ground rules here first before we, get a lot of people feeling offended or thinking that this is crazy or not helpful for them. Just want to lay that out there. So like I said, I work with a lot of people, and I am teaching this to almost every person I work with. A lot of the times they're coming to me and they're having experiences where they're sensitive to other people's moods. Like I have one client who is high up in a big company, an international company. She's like in the leadership team, and she has a difficult time feeling like she's absorbing other people's feelings and their emotions and all their energy. And a lot of times she's dealing with crunchy people and unhappy people. And it's harder for her to keep her center and to not take all of that on and to not take it home with her, to where she gets home and she's extremely drained and feeling crunchy and upset. And now it's affecting her relationship with her partner and other relationships with family members. And she feels frustrated and just like bogged down. I'm going to get into some more of the specific symptoms of what it's like when you're experiencing this phenomenon in a little bit, but I just want to really paint the picture here for you. The connection that empaths and HSPs have to this phenomenon is that they are actually very sensitive to this type of energy. They are sensitive to other people's moods. We actually have mirror neurons in our brain, more of them. We have a higher quantity, and they're very sensitive. Mirror neurons are essentially the parts of our brain that when we see something else outside of us, it makes us feel like we are experiencing it. So I'm trying to think of a metaphor, an analogy for that. It's like a virtual reality. Or if you're playing a video game, you are able to see what's happening in the video game, but you as a physical person are actually experiencing it. So if you're seeing somebody feel really angry and getting in a fight and punching somebody, then you're feeling that person's anger. It's like you're connected to them. Okay, so these mirror neurons in your brain are making it such that you are picking up on things all around you. The emotions that each person is having, whether it's anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, embarrassment, even positive emotions like happiness, joy, excitement, most of the time, these people, like highly sensitive people and empathic people, are picking up on all of those to a really extreme degree. What can happen is those negative emotions can come into you and get attached to you. So think of it like if you've ever played that game where two people have paddles that have Velcro and there's a ball and you throw it back and forth to each other and the ball is sticky with the other side of Velcro and you stick it onto the pad and then you throw it back and it lands on their pad. Think about it like that. This type of energy or this phenomenon is this ball that's being passed back and forth between people. And again, it can be positive energy, but because I'm imagining that it would be more helpful to help you protect yourself from these negative energies today, I'm going to be mostly referring to negative energies. This negative energy hot potato ball is getting passed back and forth between people. So let's say maybe your coworker is having a bad day and you're around them and you like pick up their energy. It's like that sticky ball. They're throwing it to you unconsciously and unknowingly. And your pad is so sticky that energy sticks to you like an attachment, okay? Then you are all cranky and you're crunchy and you're feeling all of these weird ways, and that's impacting you mentally, emotionally, physiologically, all these different things. And then you're hot potatoing it or tossing it to another person. And depending on how sticky that person is, it's gonna stick to them, right? So this is a matter of like, how sticky are you? And who are you surrounded by that might have hot potatoes to pass to you? And how to make your stickiness less sticky, right? And how to prevent that ball or a hot potato from even being thrown at you or coming into your space. Rather, like imagining like there's a shield here that can just block that ball or that hot potato from being thrown at you and coming into your space and being attached to you, okay? So big reveal, this phenomenon that I'm talking about is attachments. Okay, so attachments, this is where I'm going to get into a little bit of the more spiritual, esoteric side of things, because whether you are very religious, you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever, any other type of religion, or whether you believe in this stuff or not. I'm just going to be talking about it in the terms that I have experience talking about it in. Okay. So attachments are a dimensional layer that is above the third dimension. And I don't say above as in like better or higher. It's just that it's resting on top of the third dimension, if that makes sense. And when I say third dimension, I mean that which is solid stuff. So this computer, this microphone, my body, everything that I can touch, taste, smell, feel with all of my senses, that's what we would call the third dimension. These attachments or these energies, they exist in a different density or dimension that you can't necessarily see with your physical eyes unless you're more clairvoyant, or you can feel them more if you're clairsentient. But they do exist, and they're kind of floating around, and they are existing in this dimension that's maybe not seen by our eyes, but that is very much felt by their impact, right? So sometimes attachments can have a consciousness of their own. Sometimes they are like sentient beings that, in my experience, can shapeshift into different forms. If you do come from a religious background, you might understand these as being like demons or demonic beings, or fallen angels, that kind of thing. If you don't come from a religious background, think of them like just like a evil energy, an evil force. And it's not like I'm saying this to scare you or to make you be afraid of anything. It's just that there's more power with awareness, right? When we have more awareness of what is going on around us, who we are, what's happening to us, what's potentially existing in the world, then we have more power and we have more authority over it, right? So these attachments that are existing in this world that we can't necessarily physically see with our eyes, they come into the third dimension through their influence on human beings. And not every attachment is a sentient being. It's not like every attachment is a demon or a negative energy that has a negative intention. There are also forms of attachments, in my experience, that are just negative energies. So if you're a visual person, you can just think about it like these little blobs, like flubber, that are moving around energetically. And when I see somebody who has attachments that are more of like a negative emotion, I see it on their energy field like a splatter. It's either a splatter, or it's a cut or a hole in their energetic field, or it's some type of like dark cloudy spot. You could imagine it like if you've ever seen glass that has, it's not like it's been burned, but glass that has had smoke on it and like all of this soot and dust on it. You can still see through the glass sort of, but it's very blocked and it's grayed out. That's kind of what it looks like to me as a clairvoyant, to be able to see what somebody's energy field looks like when they have this attachment or this negative energy. Oftentimes, like wrapping it back around to the very beginning, like if other people's moods and energies are affecting you, it doesn't mean that every single time that you have an attachment. It could just be that you have absorbed some of that energy that's been resonating or vibrating at a lower level. But for the sake of our conversation, I'm just going to refer to even those things as attachments. Okay, so we have this word that we can use to our advantage to help us discuss something that otherwise doesn't really make sense, that otherwise doesn't really have a context for us to be able to talk about, and be able to use that word to describe this phenomenon, right? So think of attachments just being the same meaning as when you are absorbing other people's crankiness or their anger, or you notice that you are feeling cranky or crunchy or frustrated or sad or depressed or down or unmotivated from somebody else, or from going out into the world. Like even just as simple as going to the grocery store. I used to be so susceptible to attachments and to these like negative energy blobs that I would even just go to the grocery store and I would feel icky if I saw somebody that maybe was vibrating at a lower level, and I was just so impacted. So there might be some of you out there that are at this stage in your journey where you are very susceptible, and there might be some of you that have learned on your path to not be as susceptible. So I'm speaking to all of you. But really it's a big bummer when these things are impacting you, because in my experience, it feels like it's a roller coaster, or that I'm like being pushed left and right, side to side, up and down, in all these different directions. And then I'm just not stable. It's like I've got crazy moods, and sometimes I'm feeling okay. And then other times I'm really aggravated and super angry just out of nowhere. Like that happened to me last week. I was just out of the blue. I was just at the gym and I was so frustrated and so angry, and for no apparent reason. I'm not typically like a generally angry person, but I have evolved enough on my path that I'm like, oh, calling it out. That's an attachment. We need to clear it and get rid of it, right? So I just want to bring a certain level of normalcy to your experience, and to validate you that if this has been happening to you, you're not weird. It's not abnormal. It actually happens to a lot more people than you'd think. And there just isn't vocabulary around it. There's not a conversation happening around it. So I'm wanting to bring to light the fact that if this is something that you experience, there's a totally, in my opinion, rational reason as to why it's happening. Okay, so our sensitivity to energy in this kind of context and conversation might seem like it's really annoying and very inconvenient, and it makes us weak. But I want to make sure that I'm caveating this entire conversation with the fact that your sensitivity to these energies and to other people's moods does not make you weak. It is not a bad thing. It just requires you to have awareness and authority over your own energy, and authority over what energy you let in and what energy you're pushing out. The sensitivity that you have, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing even wrong with the fact that attachments exist and we have these experiences, because in the general sense of this context, if we didn't have the dichotomy of the quote unquote negative side, we would not have the opposite positive side, right? It's like you can't have light without dark. And what I'm really talking about is a difference between what we would normally call dark as it meaning evil, but darkness and evil are different. And I'm not going to go down that side tangent because that's a whole nother podcast. But when I'm referring to these attachments, there are some of these energies that are coming from that evil force, and there are some that are just from the dark, right? That more mild, like just feeling the negative emotions and some of the anger, like I was talking about earlier with the flubber and the image of like the splatter on someone's energy field. That's what I would call more like dark energy. And something like a very malevolent being, like I've encountered them many times. Those are beings that are coming from like the evil forces, which again is very different. Light and dark are just a dichotomy. Evil is like a third part of existence that has kind of slipped into our reality and our matrix. Again, podcast for a whole nother time. But I want to make sure that I'm clear about these distinctions, because some of you may have never ever experienced a evil entity or force, and that might mean that you think that I'm crazy if I'm talking about it, because if you haven't had your own personal experience with it, you might not know that it exists or accept that it exists, which is totally fine and cool. But if you have had experiences with like the darker energies that I, for the sake of this conversation, I'll say are like a little bit more mild, that doesn't mean that you're not experiencing a lot of darkness from it and a lot of heaviness, but it's in some ways it's easier to handle and to deal with, and in some ways can be easier to clear and get rid of. Okay, so I've been wanting to make sure that I answer the questions like, how are empaths and highly sensitive people affected by this phenomenon of being sensitive to energy and moods, and that coming into your space, and we call those attachments, or I call those attachments, and for the sake of our vocabulary here, we will call them attachments, and that there's different types of attachments and the sources of where those attachments are coming from, that you have like a sticky paddle, or your energy field might have a certain spectrum or level of stickiness, and those energies or those attachments are being passed around from person to person like hot potato, and either sticking to you or sliding off, depending on how susceptible you are and how in control of your own state and your own mood and energy you are. Okay, so that's kind of this foundational layer. I want to make sure that I touch on the symptoms of having an attachment. These are from my personal experience. So if these resonate with you and feel validating, great. If you've had different experiences with what you might think now are attachments, that's totally cool. It might just not have been part of my experience, but that doesn't mean that it's not real or doesn't exist. And if you think this is all baloney and crazy, that's okay. You can turn it off. Okay, so attachment symptoms. A big one that I experience is my energy feeling zapped. Like I'm so tired, even though I might not have done the physical activity that would be a prerequisite for being as tired as I am. It feels like all of my energy has just been drained out of me, and I'm just so tired and lazy and unmotivated, and I feel like a heaviness over me. Kind of like I said in the very beginning, like a dark cloud, whether you can see that visually or you just have a felt sense of it, it's like you're just weighed down. You're feeling heavier, and like your eyes might be droopy and your brain might not work as well. And maybe you have some brain fog or feeling of overwhelm. And a lot of times attachments for me, they come in the form of inconspicuous visitors, like people that I am not used to being around, or, like a contractor that might come to my house, or a landscaper, or someone that I just interacted with briefly. It doesn't have to be a long interaction with a person, like a whole deep conversation. It can literally be like you pass by that person and boom, like that hot potato of that was on them, that attachment has now jumped onto you if you're sticky, right? I also noticed that if I'm in a little bit more of a crunchy mood just on my own, or if I'm feeling more emotional, or maybe my hormones are at a time in my cycle when I'm more moody or whatever, then I'm way more susceptible to like what I'm talking about with those passerbys. And maybe it's like a neighbor that I even just get like an eye contact glimpse with, and they're like really angry. And, then I feel that. And then the rest of the day, I'm just feeling off. Or even like this happened to me just a couple days ago, where for some reason, I have been attracting and manifesting these really rude, mean people that are driving these big trucks behind me, and they're like flashing the speed limit with their hands behind me in my mirror so that I speed up. And it's like there's a car in front of me and I don't know what you want me to do, and they're just so angry and so annoying, and I get this rush of like horrible feelings from it. And that's not that experience for me personally didn't give me an attachment, but that was more of an example of that like dark energy, like that frustration, that anger. I felt all of my fight or flight responses, like my nervous system started to activate, and I had to do my tools that I'll teach you about today of how to protect yourself to really calm my body down and to let go of that dark energy that experience brought into my space. Okay, so sometimes it can feel like that, where it's like a moment of activation, and then maybe if you don't clear it in that moment, then it can lead to this like more tiredness that I'm talking about. But there's also, another symptom that's along the lines of that tiredness is feeling really drowsy and like wanting to sleep all the time, or wanting to take a nap, even just in the middle of the day, or sleeping for way longer in the night, feeling even restless. Sometimes I experience myself being really tired, but I can't sleep. Like my body's restless and I feel this exhaustion mentally and energetically, but my body is not tired. I also notice that if I have an attachment, I might feel this general sense of annoyance and like anger for no reason. It just comes out of nowhere, and I'm just angry, and I'm angry towards people, and I'm sharp, and my words are cutting, and it's like, that's not who I am. There's this general overview of like, just, you don't feel like yourself. And I often have to have other people that I've talked to about this in my space be able to point it out to me if they're noticing that I am not acting the way that I normally do, or if my energy feels lower, my vibration is like just icky to be around, or if I feel darker, or like I'm talking about this like energy zap where I'm really tired and have no energy. Sometimes other people have to point it out in me because it's so not obvious to me in the moment, or at least it used to not be so obvious. I've improved so much and learned so much down my path that I've gotten better at that, right? So perhaps this shows up for you as like having a low tolerance or even a hot temper. That happens to me. There's also, I've noticed in people that I've worked with, this feeling that they're trapped, like something is holding them captive inside their body. This has actually happened to me also on a couple occasions, which it's somewhat frightening, and you might not have experienced it to this degree, but I have had clients that I work with that come to me that are like, I feel trapped somehow, like my energy or something, like my consciousness is not the way that it normally is. And lo and behold, I find that they have an attachment. It might show up as nightmares. My niece, bless her heart, sometimes if there's either dark or evil energy in my sister's house that they didn't know was there, that sometimes maybe it's coming from people that are visiting their house, or even just passerbys, or if they pick up an attachment from somewhere else and they bring it home. My sweet niece, she's so cute, and she gets nightmares. Like, she'll have recurring nightmares over and over again. And then the minute I can tune into their house and be like, you guys have stuff in it, you got to go clear it, they do it. And then she doesn't have nightmares anymore. And it was so sweet. The other week, she was having recurring nightmares. My sister was telling me about it, and I tuned in, and I'm like, you guys have stuff in your house. They cleared it. And then she told me after that, she's like, my niece, she said, I'm back to having good dreams. And it like made my heart feel so happy. I like wanted to cry in that moment. This is happening to children a lot more than we even know, because children are very, very sensitive to the other side. They're very sensitive to these lighter densities that aren't in the 3D because they haven't fully disconnected into the 3D, right? Their consciousness and their energy development is still happening up until like age 7. That's usually where the sever happens. And then even after that, there's still an adjustment period for them to really come into the 3D fully. But children up to age 7 are very, very susceptible to attachments and to dark energies and emotions. So if you have kids, if you're a parent and you notice that your child is either having a lot of tantrums or is misbehaving or is maybe not happy or feeling really moody or emotional or sad, depressed, or overly excited or anxious or afraid, and they're not sleeping well or they're having nightmares, like ask them these questions like, did you have good dreams, or what were your dreams about? And it's really fascinating and interesting. Like, obviously I know that kids can fantasize and they can make up a lot of things, and at different points of their development, they're having a lot of experiences where it might not be what we call truthful or real. But I tell you what, that child is having that experience and it is real to them. Whether or not it is real to you, it is real to them. So my suggestion is to do whatever you possibly can to support that child in having a clean environment, a clean space, having a clean emotion, and having a clean energy space that you are inhabiting and that you're leading for your family, so that that child can then have a clean space as well. Okay, so nightmares is a symptom. Back to our symptoms. I will also notice, and you may notice, brain fog, feeling overwhelmed, feeling emotion more intensely than you maybe normally do, the inability to handle everyday problems in everyday life, and not really being able to think clearly or problem solve, which kind of goes along with brain fog, but a little bit more specifically, where it just feels like your brain is just not making all of the connections as fast as it maybe could or should. And it's just feeling like you're more slow in general in your thought processes, or like I said, in that motivation. And a huge one is having suicidal thoughts and even attempts. This is very, very, very common. And I say this with deep, deep sincerity and very intense seriousness, that suicidal thoughts and suicidal attempts could be, I'm not saying that they always are, but they could be in relation to attachments. Not in every case, and that's fine, but more often than not, if I'm working with somebody and they are sharing this information with me, They are required to have some of their own other support systems, their mental health support systems. I will find energetically that they have attachments. And more often than not, in almost every case, they're from the evil intention, not just the dark intention. It has gripped their whole reality. It has gripped their mind. It has gripped their body. And that attachment that I was talking about earlier, that's like sticky on their pad, it's not just sticky on their pad. It's almost like it's seeped into their beingness and almost become one with them, right? If you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, it's like when Smith is transforming all of the people into himself. It's like that metallic goo stuff, and he's reaching his hand into their body and turning them and transforming them into himself. That's like what the experience is when an attachment that is from the evil source has molded itself with the carrier. It's not a good situation. It's often why in like the religious context, they have exorcisms. Some people may or may not believe in that, and that's totally cool. You have every right to have your belief system. But there are very real stories and instances, and I have been not only a witness, but also a participant in needing that to be done, to have exorcisms of whether it's possessions or attachments to get those beings and those energies out. Hopefully this isn't scaring you, because that's not my intention. I am not attempting to bring any more fear to you, because fear is what they feed on. So we do not want fear. What I want is information to empower you. Okay? There's a reason why I call it protecting yourself, because I don't use the word protect in a way to make it seem like you are not strong enough, you are not powerful enough, and that there's things to be protected from. I use protect because it's a word in our language that we all can agree upon of what it means. I will often also use the word preserve. Preserve is a little bit of like a higher vibe word with a higher intention, but sometimes people don't really connect with that. So whether you connect with the word protection or preservation, that's both what we're doing here. I don't want you to come from this place of like, oh my God, I just listened to this podcast from Sadie and I now have to protect myself because there's all these scary things that I should be afraid of. No. Absolutely not. That is not the message I'm sending today. The message I'm sending is, there are these things that exist, and it's important for us to preserve ourselves. Because if we don't, we might have some of these symptoms that we may find unpleasant. I have had a lot of experience with these things, unfortunately and fortunately, because that has now led me to be able to teach you here and now. But it is deeply, deeply important to me that you do not walk away from this podcast being more afraid. It is deeply, deeply important to me that you walk away from this podcast feeling empowered, feeling more knowledgeable, feeling more aware, and more conscious of your own state, your own energy, and your own moods with the tools that I'm going to teach you to be able to preserve yourself and protect yourself from these things that you just don't want. You can think of it like wearing protective sun gear, right? The sun is not inherently bad, even though, caveat, yes, I would say that evil entities are bad. The darkness isn't necessarily bad per se, like I was mentioning earlier, those dichotomous emotions like the anger, the fear, whatever. If those become really extreme, then they might turn into food sources for the evil. But I want you to think about protecting your energy, just like you putting on sunblock or wearing a rash guard, or even just wearing clothes in general. Like there's elements outside, wind, sun, cold, heat, that we have to protect our skin and our bodies from, not because they're bad, but because we prefer to be preserved. Okay? This is the attitude to have. You prefer to be preserved. You are not afraid of being whatever it is that you might think that you're afraid of being, like attacked or whatever. You're not ever being attacked. You are just preferring preservation. And if you notice, or someone else around you notices that you're off, then you're going to have a bunch of tools to help get back into a state of preservation, right? To reclaim your state of calmness, reclaim your state of peace, reclaim your authority and your power over your state and over your beingness. Cool? Okay. I want to move into how I protect myself, how I shift into that state of preservation of my own energy and my mood. Like I've been talking about, mood and emotions are a whole world in and of themselves. If you don't have a lot of experience with emotions and moods and energy, then I would suggest that that's a place where you start and you learn about emotions, like EQ, emotional intelligence. Having emotional intelligence and awareness is going to deeply support you with other people, and when they're experiencing emotions and when they're having their own experience, you're able to kind of separate yourself and recognize, oh, they're having their own experience, they're in their own world over there, and their energy is theirs, like in their own bubble. I'm over here in my bubble, and I'm experiencing this in my own bubble. I teach people to connect with their core, and your core is this column of energy that starts from the crown of your head down to the base of your perineum or the base of your torso. And this column of energy that's not actually mine, that's from a book that I read by Stephen Kessler. Thank you for your work. But I help them connect back to this core, this channel or column of energy that is where they are the most themselves, and feel connected to themselves so that they recognize, like, okay, I'm bringing all of my attention, all of my energy back into my body, and I'm letting whoever this person is have their own experience. That emotional intelligence and awareness of just recognizing that you are not them and they are not you, there is this separation between you, can be really helpful. It's not separation to the point where you are never able to connect with anybody, or you're so cold or distant that there's no rapport, there's no connection, but it's enough. It's like right in that sweet spot, right? It's like Goldilocks of a connection where it's not too much to where you're taking on their stuff, but it's just enough to where you're still feeling the connection to the level that you would like to feel it. The point here is that people should not be allowed to suck you into their world or their space. And the hot potatoes, or those sticky balls that are being thrown to everybody, they should not be allowed to come into your space even, much less stick to your sticky pad if you don't want them to. So that's the whole point of EQ, emotional intelligence and awareness, as it relates to this context, is really giving you the power to recognize what's yours and what's not yours. What you are choosing through an empowered decision to carry, and what you're choosing to just care about, right? I tell my people when I teach them this, we care, we don't carry. If you would like to carry, that's up to you, that's your decision. But you don't have to, nor are you expected to, nor should you ever need to. You do not need to carry other people's stuff. It's not your job. You do not need to carry attachments. It's not your job. There's really nothing that's doing for anybody besides helping you feel more empowered and connected to who you are eventually, once you learn that you are not the dark energy and you are not the evil energy, right? Okay, so emotional intelligence and awareness, that's one of the first steps and the biggest thing to start with if you haven't started already. Other things that, again, may be controversial, and that's totally cool. If you like this, great. If you don't, then leave it to the side. I personally believe that the creator of all has given us tools and things on this planet Earth to help support us. And in this specific context, those things that I believe that creator of all has given us and has empowered with energy are things like stones. I believe that things like obsidian, tourmaline, selenite are very protective, and they have a certain intention and a certain vibration that allow us to have certain benefits from them, right? So those three I just listed, those are ones that I specifically like to use for protection. I even have a bracelet on that I wear pretty much 24/7 that has those stones on it, just as I guess I would call it a safety precaution, and that it's, charged with like a protective field around me, so that I have something that's working 24/7 that I don't have to think about. I don't have to do anything for. It's just here working for me. I also actually have stones placed around my desk and in my home. I also have set up, I'll go through different phases where I set up different grids energetically to help protect the space of the home. I'll do routine clearings, which I'll move to in a minute. But as for the stones, you can do all kinds of research if you'd like, but I do suggest those as not only a pretty decorative element to your space, but as something that can really help you and to protect your energy. There's also other relics, I guess I'd call them, that have helped me that may or may not help you. Holy water, something that's water that's been blessed by a priest or a pastor or somebody with that authority. And also crosses. I have those dispersed throughout my home. Again, depending on what your belief system is, totally respect any and all of them. But if you are into that and you feel a connection to a cross being a representation or a symbol for you as protection and love and all compassion and connection, I would suggest that. I also have those sitting on my desk. And holy water is also a really great thing to just set out in your house. I've coached a couple clients where if they have some weird stuff going on in their house, there was one in particular that I'm thinking of, and I directed her to a Orthodox Christian church that supplied blessed crosses and blessed holy water, and instructed her to go put them all throughout the house. Again, I know that maybe to some of you that sounds really crazy, and that's okay. You can just not adhere to these suggestions that don't feel resonant with you. But for some of us, it's really, really powerful and really helpful. It can raise the vibration. It can feel more protective and feel like you are more connected to those higher vibrations, to source, to creator of all, to Jesus, to God, to all of those beings that are actually here to help us. Like I was mentioning earlier, cleansing and clearing your space is also a very helpful way to protect your energy. So what that means is going through your whole space, whether it's your car, your house, your apartment, wherever you reside, and saying some prayers and some statements that revoke the permission for any and all energies or beings to be in that space, that you do not allow in that space, that you do not welcome in that space. Think of it like if you had your front door unlocked and you had a lot of people in the neighborhood that liked to just come in and walk around your house and lay on your couch and eat your food and watch your TV and, lay on your bed. That's like what's happening on an energetic level when you bring attachments to your physical space, when you bring energy and emotions that are from the outside world, even through technology, whether you're on a Zoom call meeting. Like the other day, I had to do some clearing because I felt energy that came through the technology, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to clear this out. So it's not just physically, you can also get it from being on a phone call, being on a Zoom meeting, or any other type of interaction that you're having with anybody else outside of your physical space. So again, it's like if people were just able to walk into your house and do all that stuff, that's the same thing that's happening energetically. So when you're cleansing and clearing your space and your body, what you're essentially doing is proclaiming that you are revoking permission for any and all of those beings or energies. Again, right? They might not have a consciousness of their own. They might just be a negative emotion, but that those energies do not have permission to exist in your space. So for me, what I like to do is I'll take sage. Sage is a very cleansing and clearing support tool, like I mentioned with the stones. I take sage and I walk around my whole house and I say out loud, I cleanse and clear any and all energy from this space that is not mine, that is not for my highest and best good. I revoke your permission for being here. You must leave and go now. And I just repeat that in parts over and over and over again throughout the whole house while I'm holding the sage and I'm cleansing all of it. And I say, with the power of the creator of all, I bless this space. And I am cleansing and clearing anything and everything out that does not belong here any longer. You must leave and go now. You have your permission revoked. So think of it like you're gathering up all these strange people that have just walked through your front door when it was unlocked. And, you're like, get up off the couch, get up off my bed, stop eating my food and go out, get out of the door. That's essentially what you're doing. And it can feel very empowering. And if you're sensitive, you will absolutely feel a difference. You'll feel lighter. You'll feel more expansive. You'll feel more space in your head and in your body. And you'll feel like you're back to yourself again. And you're more connected to your heart and connected to high vibration and to positive, happy emotions and moods, and probably more stable also. I do the sage, and then I also do a second layer with Palo Santo. It's a type of wood. You can look up on Amazon like sage and Palo Santo and just get little kits if you want. But the Palo Santo I use as a way to bless the space. So sage clears it, and Palo Santo is intended to bless it. So I walk around and I proclaim my gratitude for everything that I have in my space. I say, thank you for this beautiful picture, for lighting up my room and making it feel so warm and homey and cozy in here. Thank you for my blankets, for keeping me warm during cold nights. Thank you for my bed, for supporting me and being comfortable so that I can sleep every night comfortably. Thank you for my refrigerator, keeping all my food cold. Thank you for my oven, for helping me. You get the gist. So I go around and I thank all of the objects for their specific purpose and for what they're doing for me. And what that does is it has an extreme effect on your vibration, because gratitude and love are some of the highest vibrations that you can resonate at. And when you proclaim your gratitude for these different things, then you're changing the vibration of the space. That in and of itself just automatically kicks out any attachments or any negative energies that you might be feeling that you got from other people. So another hack that you can do is, if you've been out in the world, let's say you were at the grocery store and you felt like you picked up on something crunchy, or you got in a bad mood, or let's say maybe you had a phone call with someone and they were in a bad mood, then what you can do after that experience, like what I did with that guy driving behind me in the truck that was like yelling at me and like blaring all the speed limit numbers at me and whatnot, then I just say to myself, like, I'm so happy and grateful that I'm in my car, that I'm safe, that I'm getting to my destination safely. I'm so happy and grateful that he's going where he needs to go and he has his own life and I don't have to care about it. I'm so happy and grateful that I'm my own individual sovereign being and I don't have to let him impact me. I'm so happy and grateful that I'm here in this moment. I'm so happy and grateful, da 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 da. So you can say that phrase, I'm so happy and grateful, to help cleanse and clear that negative experience and energy out. That goes along with prayers. If you're somebody who likes to pray, I am somebody who loves to pray. That can also be very helpful and powerful. Whatever deity you believe in, whether it's God, it's Allah, it's Yahweh, it's spirit, it's universe, it's electricity, whatever you feel you resonate with is the source of all that is, the creator of all that is, the energy that is the most high, the most benevolent, the most unconditionally loving. Then pray with that energy in mind, and you can have whatever kind of prayer process that you want. I just know that prayer is very, very powerful, very, very powerful. And it's something that can help cleanse and clear your energy out as well. Like, I've witnessed people in church that they go to a prayer person who's helping them, and that person is praying over them and is doing their own version of what I would call clearing an attachment. They don't call it that in a Christian church, but I still have appreciation and respect for the fact that it's somewhat of a similar idea, right? If someone's having a really hard time in their life, maybe they're having financial struggles, or, they lost a baby, or somebody died suddenly, like something really tragic, and that emotion is stuck inside of them, that person's praying over them and helping release that energy. So prayer is very powerful, whether someone else is doing it for you or you're doing it yourself, connecting to the power of all. And on to the final thing that I do. This is something that I developed because of all of my experiences with feeling so impacted by people's moods. So this final tool that I'd like to empower you with it's really profound, if I'm being totally honest. It is something that is free. It's something you can do very, very easily. Whether it's every day or if you get good at it, it's something that just comes naturally to you. It is something that requires practice in the beginning, just like anything, to get good at it. So there's a dedication there to really learn it and to practice it so that it becomes second nature, what my teacher would call unconscious competence. And it's profoundly helped me and almost every client that I've taught it to. Okay, this tool is called bubble building. Bubble building is a awareness of your own energy field as it extends beyond your body. Typically, I would say that your energy field extends out beyond your fingertips, right? It's like this dome, if you will, or a bubble that's around you in all directions, above, below, to the sides, in front and back of you. And I call it bubble building because you already have an energy field that's inherent and innate to you. It's this space of energy that's vibrating in coherence with you in your body, but that is often unprotected. It's unpreserved. It doesn't have a boundary or a layer that is able to discern what is moving in and out of the bubble. Okay, so your energy field is the bubble itself, but bubble building is the process of becoming conscious and aware of that space and of being able to move things in and out of that bubble at your will. Okay, so again, this is kind of like Harry Potter stuff. It's really cool. It's like, I wouldn't call it magic, but it's being able to get connected to stuff that you might not always be seeing physically with your eyes, but really getting that sixth sense of yours heightened and in more practice so that you're able to preserve your space. All of this for the purpose of you not being impacted by other people's moods and not having these attachments get sticky onto you, right? Bubble building helps make your edges smooth so that any energy that comes into or near your space just slides right off. Instead of you holding that hot potato that gets thrown at you or that ball that's Velcro that sticks to your sticky pad, it just slides right off. It doesn't impact you. You barely even feel it. It's not something that you have to deal with or that derails your whole day, your whole week, your whole month, or something that you then pass to somebody else. And that it's not this like weird incestuous type of virus that's getting passed around to everybody. My dream is that everybody has this awareness and is able to have authority over their own state, their own energy, their own emotions, so that they are not tossing all of these attachments to everybody else. I get very excited about bubble building if you haven't been able to tell. The premise, again, is that you have a core in your being, in your body, a core of energy. You can think of it like an apple core, and you can feel the bubble around you is like the meat of the apple, and the core of your energy is like the core of the apple, right? The process of bubble building is like building the skin of the apple so that you're not susceptible to the meat of inside of your bubble. It's actually kind of a weird analogy. I've never used that one before, but it kind of works. So you get connected to your core, then you imagine this bubble around you. If you're good at visualizing, that's great. If you are more of a feeling type person, then you just feel or get a felt sense of this bubble around you. If you're more auditory, then you can potentially hear that there's a surrounding casing around you. If you've ever seen the movie actually called Bubble Boy that has Adam Sandler, it's kind of like that. He lives in this bubble. You don't have a physical one that you have to reside in, but the idea is that you are imagining with your mind's eye or with your felt sense that there is a bubble that's surrounding you, and it has an outer shell or an outer layer that has authority connected to your consciousness. And what I mean by that is it's like every single square inch of this bubble has the capability of opening or closing like a door. And your consciousness is what allows anything or everything to either open a door to come in or to open a door to go out. The skill that's involved in this is not building the shell, because once you already immediately imagine that you are surrounded by a bubble and that there's a shell, like a layer of skin on that shell, like in an apple, then that's already done. Boom, you've created it. Perfect. The skill comes in with you having a relationship with that bubble and beginning to notice what it feels like when energy is bombarding you and you can push it out, or when energy is inside of you and you are imagining it's leaving or dissolving or disintegrating or disappearing. In my actual exercise that I have available, if you would like to buy it on my website, findinghomehealing.com, I go through this example of your bubble being like a garage door, right? So when you are driving your car out and about in the world, you come home, you open your garage door, you bring your car in, and you close your garage door. That's kind of a similar idea to what you're doing with your bubble, because your inside of your house is analogous to being inside of your body, right? So your bubble is that layer that's just outside of your body, but that's still connected to your body, that has that door that closes so that you are protected from everything outside of it, and you are allowed to walk into your house, aka walk into your body, come back home to yourself, come back home to feeling connected to yourself. So the process of bubble building is really like, oh, okay, I need to recognize that this door is coming up and out and over me, and it's shutting down so that I'm disconnecting anything and everything from the outside world. And I can either push all of the energy that's in my bubble out of it, like with some of those cleansing practices that I just shared with you, or you can let things in. It depends on what you're needing or what you're wanting. So that's the idea of the bubble. And then when you get more connected to that feeling, being surrounded, and practicing the skill of what it feels like when things are in or out or impacting you or not, then you practice that on a daily basis and you master bubble building. What it's really doing for you is when you're out in the world, and like we've been talking about, if somebody is in a mood or someone's doing something to you, you have that preserved layer around you. It's part of your own consciousness. It's part of your own projection that you've created in your reality space. That is a protective layer for you. It's almost like you're creating another layer of skin for your body, because you already have a physical layer of skin to protect all your muscles and organs and ligaments. Your bubble skin is another layer of protection energetically and emotionally. Is that making sense? I sure hope so, because this is a really, really powerful and important tool for most people, and more specifically for empathic and highly sensitive people. I lead people through this in a one-on-one session and help them get used to the feeling of energy being thrown at them and helping them remove energy as like a practice. But I do also have a really, really helpful guided meditation to help you build your bubble and to practice using it. That's available on my website, again, findinghomehealing.com, if you would like that. It's also available inside the HSP course, HSPSOS, if you'd like the full-blown course to help you if you're a highly sensitive person. But I would advise and suggest, if any of this has resonated with you today, that is a resource that you look into and see if it helps. Bubble building has changed my whole life. It has transformed a lot of my clients' lives and their interactions with other people, their authority over their own energy and their own space. So I do know that it's powerful. I use it. I've tested it. It's very well vetted. So it's really important to me on this topic of attachments to mention media. And when I say media, I mean everything that media has to do with: movies, TV shows, social media, all the apps, anything and everything that you are being exposed to in the world. There's a susceptibility to getting potential attachments. I know people that are very, very drawn and magnetized to horror movies and to thrillers. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not here to shame anybody. I just want to bring to light that unless you are either so skilled and stellar at preserving your energy, or you don't have susceptibility to attachments or negative energy or negative emotions whatsoever, which I've never come across a person who isn't, but maybe you are. Or if you just want to live your life a certain way, that's okay. But if you are somebody who is either drawn or magnetized or attracted to horror, scary, thriller type movies, my assumption would be that you may or may not have an attachment. And if you are somebody who watches those movies, or even just like sometimes highly action movies or dramas, it doesn't have to be horrors. It's really anything that has an intense charge of energy to it that might be on the spectrum of dark instead of light. Again, there's nothing wrong with dark. It's not evil per se, but sometimes evil can infiltrate its way through the darkness to come into our paradox, our dichotomy. But those, like on the spectrum, that negative, darker side of things in media can really, really impact you. Unless you are wearing your bubble before watching something, even like Harry Potter. Before I was really masterful at my energy and being able to watch movies, I spent, almost 6 years. I didn't watch TV at all. I would maybe watch a movie here and there, but I didn't even own a TV. I didn't have a TV in my space. I never watched anything on YouTube. I didn't watch anything on my phone. I was not exposed to anything. I was really working on mastering my field and my energy and how to control it. And I do find that highly sensitive people and empathic people, more specifically, can be very impacted by movies and TV shows and things that are just darker, like paranormal activity type shows, or again, like thrillers, horrors, even dramas, things that are really intense, have a lot of emotion, are on the more negative side of things. You may or may not be more susceptible to getting attachments while being exposed to those things. There's also stuff on the internet, right? Like social media can expose you to all sorts of spectrums of energy. So my public service announcement for all of that is just that you wear your bubble, right? Wear that, protect yourself, do the things and use the tools to teach you to be able to protect and preserve yourself from the influences of these attachments that may or may not come into your space by being exposed to some of these things. If you are somebody who doesn't want to put a lot of effort into preserving yourself, but you still want to not be susceptible to them, then don't watch those things. Get rid of it on your social media, or don't watch those movies or TV shows, and just put a block energetically and through your actions to those sources of energy. It's something that I did. I found it extremely helpful and really profound to protect myself from those things, to really care for myself and not feel forced to have to watch them, or even if my friend wanted to watch it, or a spouse or your partner wants to watch it and it's really bothersome to you, go to another room or politely ask them to watch it at a time that you're not at the house so that you don't have to be around that stuff. I actually have had a couple of clients where we had to make some agreements in their partnership because one of the partners wanted to watch those horror, thriller type scary movies, and the other partner was very, very sensitive and didn't want that anywhere in their space. And so we had to make agreements around when was an appropriate time to watch them and who needed to be in what room and whatnot. And even though that sounds tedious and annoying, it's really honestly for the protection, well-being, and betterment of everybody in the household, so that whoever it is that is more susceptible or that doesn't want to be exposed to that stuff is taken care of and has their preservation tools handy and their environment set up to help them. In a general sense, though, I really hope that this information has empowered you and has helped you understand more about yourself, more about your experiences that you're experiencing in life. The whole idea of attachments is really, like I keep hounding into you, is to help you feel empowered so that you know how to protect your energy, you know how to preserve your energy, how to get back into a state of preserved energy, and the differences in that. It's really, again, like the whole point of this podcast is to help you come home to the light and the power within yourself. This is one of those things that dramatically helps you do that because, like I said, these dark energies or these evil energies, they're vying for your energy. They want you, they want your darkness, they feed on those things, and you are not required to give that to them. So the more that you have power and authority over your own mood, your own energy, not letting other people derail you, not letting other environments and these energies that you might not have even known existed before derail you, you get to live a life that's so much happier and more abundant and easy and light. And that's honestly what I've experienced. Ever since I got good at bubble building and I learned more about attachments, I learned how to clear them quickly and easily, and I practiced it over and over again. I experience life without the influence of attachments anymore, and it is so, so beautiful. I wish that for you too, if this is something that has impacted you in your life. So just want to do a quick overview. I appreciate you holding out with me for this whole hour. We've really dove deep into this topic, this phenomenon that a lot of people experience that they might not know that they're experiencing, called attachments. That attachments can come from either like a dark energy space that I would maybe categorize as being like a negative emotion, anger, frustration, fear, sadness, that type of thing, or are actual like evil, malevolent beings with a consciousness that have an agenda and have an intention. That, again, more of the folks with like a religious background would resonate with the term demon or demonic energy. Those are like multiple categories of attachments. And we discussed how HSPs and empaths are more sensitive to other people's moods and why that is because of their mirror neurons, and how these attachments are showing up, different scenarios or instances and when it can happen, the symptoms of what an attachment may feel like, and really how to protect and preserve yourself. So again, thank you for joining me here on this episode today. I really hope this has been extremely helpful and supportive for you. I hope that you are feeling empowered and more informed and more knowledgeable and can go use these tools to help support you every single day. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.